do in July that you break that up?
I went home, went to Louisiana, visit family for a couple weeks, did some cooking, and then we ended at the Bahamas. We went to the Bahamas for a week before we came back. So,
Had a great break.
Yes, ma'am.
What tone are you looking to set for the
Just looking to build off of what we did in the spring. We have some new guys that we've added in, of course, but the guys are second round in the defense. We've got guys that played last year, so really excited about the retention that they have with this defense, and want to make big strides.
Lance, obviously big shoes to fill with Cam Kitchens and James Williams. Mish can obviously play in slot at corner. Do you want him primarily at safety, knowing he's going to be playing alongside someone without a ton of experience at safety?
Yeah, he'll play safety. He'll play free safety for us, play a little bit of nickel. We'll kind of do nickel by committee. We'll play some guys at corner that'll play the nickel as well. But yeah, it's important that he's back there. He can make a lot of checks. Of course, he's got a lot of games underneath his belt, and a lot of meaningful games, of course. So looking forward to it, and we've got to continue to grow that other safety position. But we had some guys that did really well this spring.
Mark Keith, obviously, Isaiah Taylor, Zaquan. Who stands out from that group?
Harris is there. You've got Zaquan Patterson, Marquise. So we have three guys we can rotate there. So we got some young guys that are going to learn some things and just see what they can do with it as well.
Simeon Barrow mentioned that you want the young defense line to be playing what he called bully ball.
Yeah.
How would you describe what bully ball is, and how would you describe just what you have on that defense line, specifically the interior, replacing some key pieces?
We want to play on the other side of the line of scrimmage, so we're attacking defense, and I think we'll be able to do it with our front four. Last year at the same meeting, people was concerned about would we be able to stop the run because we didn't have a lot of depth at D-line, but we did a pretty good job last year. I think this year we have bigger guys. We have guys that are athletic, and we have experience. We got some guys hadn't been with us, but where they're coming from, they have a lot of games underneath their belt, and that always makes the defense coordinator feel good.
Coach, can you talk about Barrow, Barrett, the guys that you picked up after the spring window, specifically how you envision using them and what the strengths are?
They'll be in the rotation. It's a lot of competition at the D-line right now, so the only way to get better is to compete against each other. And we got a really good offensive line to go up against, so I think the strength of our team is in the interior with the defensive line and offensive line. So we'll be able to play more numbers there, but going into game one, we really don't know who those four guys are, but you know who's competing against each other for those spots.
What's the comfort level you have at corner beyond Darryl Porter and Damari Brown? Corners 3 through 6. Your comfort level and what guys have impressed from that group?
Well, when we played Florida State, we started Damari and we started the Richard kid, and they played pretty well. So we still have Richard. We've added Diani Hill, who played for us at Marshall when me and Chevis was there. He's a Gainesville kid, so he's a Florida kid. And, of course, Porter has some experience. And you have some freshmen coming in who I'm really excited about. So we'll see. We have to develop to where we got 5 corners at least to feel good, but you definitely got to have 4. So I think we're in a better spot this year than we were last year. I think safety position is where our low number count is, and you're a little thin. So we need to stay healthy.
And as far as the veteran corners, I know Diani told us he played mostly boundary. Obviously at Marshall, your time intersected there. Nickel right now, you'd be looking at who? Deus, Brown, who?
Brown, Porter, and Richard will be the starters when we go nickel, and Brown will probably start at the nickel right now. On third down, Porter will probably play some nickel. You also have Mish that can play nickel, and of course you have Richard can as well. So we have 4 guys we can rotate in there. Last year, we had TC and we had Davis, and that was kind of the only 2 guys. So I feel like we have more depth there, but it's pulling from other positions. So we did a good job in the off season and summer of developing that and learning, teaching the guys multiple positions.
Which of the incoming freshmen DBs do you think is physically most ready to play besides Patterson? Is there any other guys that physically think speed, body size, all that they've got to take to make it an impact?
We hadn't been able to work with them that much and that many live reps, but Federic looks real good. OJ, he's making some plays on some balls against older receivers, but you won't know until you present the whole playbook to them and see what they catch on to, and then see them against the really good receivers. So I don't know. I'm optimistic though.
Are there any second-year guys within your system that have kind of taken a jump from last year to this year that might surprise some people?
I think at the linebacker position, Popo has made some big strides through the spring. Some of the defensive linemen, of course, Bain's one. Bain was forced to play a lot last year, as a freshman. And because he played a lot, he got better because we didn't know he could have that kind of a freshman presence, play against Clemson. He was kind of throwing some of them guys around, and we just didn't see it up to that point. So by him playing, getting experience, there's nothing like game experience, So, yeah, sometimes that works, and sometimes it spooks people. So we'll see. I think he's a little bit of a combination of Kiko and Wesley. So he's a guy you add in there that's played a lot of snaps, meaningful snaps, comes from a good program. So we really needed that, because it's another guy with experience. After that, and you've got guys that haven't played a lot of snaps, like Popo, like Pruitt, like Washington. So he was a good addition.
To have Barron and, I'm sorry, Dave, go ahead. I'm just going to ask you one last thing, position-wise. With Barron and Alston supplementing Mesidor and Bain, how good do you feel about that top four?
I mean, I think personally, but you don't know, I think that is the best position on our defense is a defensive ends, because you've got big guys who can really rush the passers. You got guys that can move inside as well. So when you think of a cheetah package, being able to rush four, and still being able to play the run, those four guys. But we got some defensive tackles who can rush the passer as well. So I feel like we've done ourselves a service of getting those guys in. And I really feel good about our defensive line right now. And in the fall camp, in some team situations, like, wow, okay, he's caught up to a lot of people. And then when he started playing, he got his feet wet. It kind of, at some point in the season, it clicked. It was just like high school again. And that clock is different for different guys. Some guys play as a freshman, and it's just way too much for them. And their sophomore year, see, God, look at the growth. Him, it slowed down immediately, and that's very unusual. Especially for a kid to play on the D-line in the ACC, to be able to throw people around like he did, that's not a common thing.
Stood out for you?
Yeah, that was the big game to me, because they had some experienced linemen, and he looked like the senior at times in there. So, yeah, that was pretty impressive.
Last year, you kind of had this situation mid-season where guys started going down with injuries.
Yeah.
Kind of had to run a three-man front. This year, though, very different.
Yeah.
A bit more depth, especially on the interior as well. Any guys on the interior you think could, in an emergency situation, have to play out on the edge? And who are your edge guys you think could play inside?
Inside going out, I mean, you've got a young guy like Scott who is athletic. You have the Barrow kid who's also played a little bit outside at Michigan State, but primarily inside. You really don't go inside out as much as outside in. We have some defensive ends that could play a three-tech. Bain could play it, Mesidor could play it, Barron could do it. Alston's probably the only one that's a true outside guy. The rest of the three, they could play any position up front, is what you really want. It's kind of like in the secondary. You want secondary guys that can play multiple spots, and I think we have defensive linemen like that, which is going to be good.
Artavius Jones talking about like some sort of superhero weight rooms. I know he was a big weightlifter in high school. I'm just curious about him and how he fits in. How it takes to play the fight.
I think he's very physically gifted. Of course, you never know how guys coming from high school are going to transition. He wasn't here in the spring, so he's got kind of a little bit of a learning curve. So we'll know through fall camp how he's progressing. If we think now physically, you could probably put him in a nose and just let him play a nose before us picking up a lot of things we do. We'll have to wait to see how he grasps that, and it's a different learning curve for every freshman that comes in.
I was going to ask you about C.J. Clark and Marley Cook, what you saw from each of them in the spring.
C.J. did really well. C.J. was really, really consistent. Marley is a little bit more of a pass rusher. He's got a little bit of thump. He's a kid that could possibly move out. He's not as long as you want to play outside, but he's athletic enough. So we got a good combination of power, speed, and then size. C.J. gives us a little size. So, yeah, I'm excited about those guys as well. And we'll be able to play a lot of guys up front this year, which will keep us fresh for the fourth quarter.
And obviously Barrow will be a big key.
Sure.
Besides those three veterans, anyone so far pushing them?
I think Moten's got the potential to be just as good as any. And then I like the freshman Scott. Like, he is very talented. We hadn't gotten too deep against our offense because they hadn't been with pads this summer. But I think he's going to flash. Now, I'm not going to say he's going to flash as much as Bain because that's hard to say, but he has potential.
Yeah, you see a 5-star end come in, 5-star receiver. They can play in college programs right away. I guess it's a little more complicated or nuanced with tackles.
Yeah, you worry about the power and just the different type of linemen they're going up against, because in high school they don't get that many big guys in front of them. But during the summer he looked really good.
Here's a question I ask a lot. People from different teams and coaches. What's something you either appreciate about your job now that you didn't know coming into it, or learned, or maybe learned is a better way? I don't know however you want to answer.
It's really the same game, it really is. But you can't take for granted when you get to a place that you're going to have better players at spots, meaning everything's compared to what league you coach in, So at years when I was at McNeese State, we were more talented than everybody. And it was easy. The job was easy then, And then other years at McNeese, we played with lesser guys, smaller guys. You go to Marshall, you got this, but you don't have that. Last year at Miami, we were light at certain positions. We were inexperienced at certain positions. So halfway through that season, we were so light at D-line that all of a sudden I got to make a change schematically, period. But I think probably in my high school days and my smaller college days, I was always taught to make sure you run things that fits your kids the best. You can't just be in this is my scheme, this is what I do. No, it's Miami's defense, what we need to do to be successful. And I think that's through learning experience. And so I always say I don't coach out of a playbook, I coach off of experiences. So I knew who our best players were last year after we started getting injured, and I felt like I had to get the best players on the field. So that's what we did, and it panned off. It panned out. So
Maybe you're younger, you wouldn't have changed.
no, I wouldn't have changed when I was young. I wouldn't have had enough experience to do it. And it was collected between me and D-Nick and some of the D-line coaches. We want to make sure we put the best 11 on the field, and that's what we felt like gave us the best chance against Clemson. We kind of rode that for a while, but then it caught up to us kind of at the end. We just didn't have enough guys up front that were healthy, and it is what it is.
What did you do? I can't even remember.
We jumped from a 4 down to a 3-man front, put in an extra backer, and we was playing on the edges with Wesley and one of the other backers. It was multiple ones, and so we got in some bear and some odd look with some linebackers as defensive ends. So
How relieved were some of the guys on the team when they found out you were coming back another year? Because speaking with some of the guys who've been in the program 2, 3, maybe 4 years, and they were really excited. Like just speaking about continuity and having you back here again and being comfortable with the system.
Yeah, I think it's important that you have carryover schemes, first of all, but then carryover of coaches. We had Coach Adai left, but then we add Chevis, who had been with me before, so a lot of the terminology and the things we do, he's already done, but he's kind of taken it to a different level of what he likes, at the corner position. So that was good, that they felt good that who I was hiring that was connected to me, so that was good. And those guys playing in the defense the second year having the same terminology is big, because they've kind of been through a little bit of a gauntlet on defensive terminologies, and it's just hard to get good if you're always changing, So the guys felt good, so I'm excited to be back, and I think we got a good football team.
And flipping over to the offensive side, last question for me. Anyone, whether it may be a freshman or a transfer that's come into the program, aside from Cam Ward, I was talking about Cam Ward, but anyone you think could open people's eyes this year that people are not talking about enough?
I'm just going from what I've seen. Of course, they know about the transfer wide receiver from Houston, but I think Elijah Lofton, what he was able to do this spring as a freshman, come in and make all the one-handed catches, being able to play running back, play tight end, off the ball, on the ball, flexed out. That's a lot for a freshman, but the game slowed down for him the moment he got here. So I think he'll have a big year. How much we use him, I don't know, but I think our tight end positions is pretty special right now. I really do believe that. And I don't know. Cam's going to have a good year, and we got a good offensive line, so you have a chance when you have those common things, a good quarterback and a big, experienced, physical offensive line. It makes the defense coordinator feel good for sure.
Thank you.
All right, babe. You all right? Good.
Just wanted to ask first about the defensive line, man. This load, as far as like as many bodies that you can use. How many bodies do you think you can kind of use in this rotation? And how excited are you to kind of have the flexibility to maybe stay in a 4-3 or 4-2-5, where you can spot?
I think we got multiple guys. You know, right now looking at it on paper, you probably feel good about, not even depending on freshmen, probably 5 defensive tackles and 5 ends, which makes you feel really good. But then you have a couple freshmen that could come in and give some assistance as well. You know, the defensive tackle position in Scott, and then you have all these freshman defensive ends, whether it's Lightfoot, whether it's McConaughey, whether it's Booker Pickett, you know, whether it's Rudolph, whoever it may be. You got a bunch of guys out there. So just excited to see how quick they catch on and if we can use them this year.
Do you expect to kind of use like these freshmen? Do you think that can be a possibility?
I hope we can use them, but I hope we don't have to depend on them, if that makes sense. You know, when you have to depend on a bunch of freshmen, you're probably going to go through some growing pains. But if you're able to use them and do what they do well, then I think it could be an asset, whether it be 3rd and long or whether it be at the end of the games a rush to passer, whether it be special teams. So I feel like we have a bunch of numbers, and that's always a good thing, you know, when you got a bunch of numbers at the defensive line.
Now, when it comes to the defensive backs, there should be some competition, I would say. So how excited are you to see these guys kind of battle for playing time at the defensive back?
Yeah, you know, you've got a couple battles at safety, you know, with Harris and Markeith, and then Zaquan's going to throw himself in there too, you know. So Zaquan has a lot of talent. He's just inexperienced, just arrived on campus this spring, but he'll be better this fall camp than he was when he started. Then at the corner position, you got 4 to 5 guys that can go, and you know, Porter's the oldest one, and you got Richard, and you have Brown. You throw in Diana Hill, who's a transfer, and look out for OJ Frederic. I mean, so I'm excited about those guys and just see them compete against each other.
Awesome. And just at the linebacker position, how solid do you feel about Kiko in the middle and really kind of being a leader of this defense?
I feel good. You know, he's a quiet leader, but I think he'll be a little bit more vocal. You got Alderman coming in, who's got a lot of experience. He played under a good defense, a good program with Louisville. And then Wesley made big strides this past year in the spring. So I feel good. We're our top 3, but then you got a guy like Popo, who's gotten a lot better this spring and over the summer. And then you have Bobby Pruitt. You got Bobby Washington. So you've got some younger guys that you're anxious to see how much they grow. So I feel good. I think we can go 4-3. We can go 4-2-5. I think we can do multiple things, but I think, you know, our experiences up front at backer. In a secondary, we're a little thin, but we got guys that can play multiple positions.
Awesome. Last year, we seen you kind of coach up the safeties a little bit at times. Now with Coach Jackson in the mix, is it still kind of going to be that way, you think?
Yeah, it's still kind of that way. Jackson's the secondary coach, and he'll install all the defenses. And then after practice, when we break up the film, he'll take the corners and the nickels that are corners, and I'll take the safeties and the safeties that are nickels, and I will watch film separately so we can make the corrections and use our time wisely. And then back the next morning, back install all together. So they need to be together to get so they're all on the same page, but then when you corrected them, they need to be separate because you can do more work that way. But yeah, Chevis is familiar with what we do on defense. He knows how we did it. So he has some suggestions where he knows the background of what we've done before so that we can switch and just keep always staying fresh and being ahead of the offense.
Awesome. I talked to Nice Powell, and he said he's going to be kind of interchangeable with nickel and a safety. Are you guys trying to fight for him as far as...
No, he's a safety. He'll be in my room, but he'll play a little bit of nickel. We're also going to play Brown and Porter at some nickel as well. So when we go 4-2-5, look for Brown to be the first guy to go out there. You could see on some third downs, maybe see Porter. Mish could be on early downs. Then you have to bring in another safety if he does. So there's different things we can do with those positions.
Lastly, Jaden Harris, what can you say about him and just what you expect from him in fall camp?
He made a bunch of strides this spring. He's starting to act like a starter. I thought last year he acted like a number 2. You know, he had a couple games where he's able to start in because Cam was hurt. Played one game, I thought he played real well, the other one average, but there's a total difference with him. It's like he knows that he has a shot. You know, he's penciled in as the starter, which means nothing because we're going to compete every day. But, you know, Harris has a lot more confidence with him, and I think he'll have a really good fall camp. I think he'll have a good season. Appreciate it. Thank you. Sure.
How are you?
Good.
I was waiting for you to get a few minutes. How's your summer?
It was good.
Yeah.
It was good. Could have been a little longer, but you know how it is.
I think we all feel the same way.
Yeah.
Really quick, just doing a story on our veterans. You know, guys that we know. Jalen on the offensive side, Cam on the offensive side. How
defensively. It's really amazing.
Setting what you all want to see.
Yeah, I think it always helps when you got guys that are better players and they're also the most experienced. It kind of goes hand in hand, and those guys tend to be extensions of the head coach and of the position coach and the coordinators, and I think that's what Kiko kind of is. He's an extension of us, and Mish Powell probably fit in that category as well. They both played a lot of games on defense, along with Mesidor, of course. So you've got guys on all three levels who's got experience, and I think they'll do a good job of being extensions of us. And I'm just excited to see them play this year and how much better we can get.
How different is a team when it's player-led? I know that's something you always coaches talk about so much. There's only so much we can do. You guys have to take it the rest of the way. That importance, how different is it when a team is led by?
Well, the voice needs to be of a teammate. The better defenses and better teams that I've been on, it's been that way. You know, some of your better players were the team leaders. They were the experienced ones, and when they said something, it meant something because they worked the hardest. They was always dependable, on time, and they also made the plays in key and big moments. So I think we have those type of players, and it's very important because the leader can't be the coach. It just can't be. It's good. You try to do that, but when your players can run their own team, that's when you're going to have success.